Hello. In this lecture, we are going to talk about one of the ugliest programming languages ever made. But I'm not here to judge, but it's true. So, we're going to talk about JavaScript. But to be honest, JavaScript saved the world when it needed a savior. This was the time when it was already hard to live with websites where only the server could do computing, and in the browser it was just static HTML. This was also the time when the sentence refresh the browser was just said too many times. Because if you wanted your content to be updated, then you had to refresh the page. And then came JavaScript and brought dynamic programming capabilities to the browser. Since then, websites are moving and jumping, all thanks to JavaScript. We even got so far that there are programming frameworks where most of the computing happens in the client side in JavaScript, and only the model in the database is on the server side. So when you do a security assessment, it really depends on the application and the framework. Sometimes you just need to read a little bit of JavaScript to see how it works, but sometimes you will have to really debug obfuscated JavaScript code, which is not that much fun. But in this lecture, we are not going to go so far. We're just going to try JavaScript so that you understand the basic concept how it works. So first of all, let me draw a little bit. So as I showed you in PHP, you have the server, and then it has some HTML, and in it has some PHP, like that. And then when this sent to the browser, then it's just pure HTML. And because it was here pure HTML, it couldn't be dynamic because that was just static code. With JavaScript, what happens in the browser, it's really important, is that it receives a code which is partly HTML, as we have seen before with random HTML tags. But then there is a script tag, and then this is here, that's pure JavaScript code until the script tag finishes. And after that, it's again HTML. So the browser is going to start to render the page. It will do what the HTML says. There could be also CSS in the background, but let's not go into that. And then it comes to the script tag. Then it understands that it's proper JavaScript, and then it's going to execute the script. And basically, JavaScript is just yet another programming language, which in this case runs in the browser and is able to manipulate the page, send requests, etc. So you have the full programming capabilities of JavaScript inside your web page. And with that, you can use that to modify your web page, like update a list or change something or replace pictures, etc. So that's what really gives the dynamic to the web page, is what we basically see every day. You can also use JavaScript on the server side with using Node.js, but we're not gonna go into that. For us, it's more interesting how it works in the browser, because that's what we will be able to exploit later on in various attacks. So to try things out, we are gonna go back to our Who is Your Daddy application. As you remember, we have the whoisyourdaddy.php in the root folder of Apache. And I just turn the syntax highlighting on. And as you can remember, there is a form. If you submit the form, it will write, "I'm your father," and then use the name in the form. and then list the options you have or Luke has. But so what we want is just to do a little bit of eye candy. We want these two options to appear after each other with 2 seconds delay. That's what we are going to implement in JavaScript. First, I will give our list an ID so that we can reference it later from the JavaScript code. And then here I start writing our script. Very important that it has to be in a script tag. There are other places where you can include JavaScript and it will be executed, but mostly it's inside a script tag. So first I will create an array of the options we have. Options is and then I copy paste these two options there. Actually, I can delete them from here. But this will be a simple string in this case, separated by a comma because it's an array. Yeah, so this options array holds our options, what we want to print. And then we create a function. We call it update, and it gets a parameter called counter or CTR. So that's how a function looks like. And first we need to find the reference for the list we want to update. For that we use the document. That's a built-in element in browsers that corresponds to the current document. So basically this web page where the JavaScript is embedded. And for that we use the get element by ID. Again, it's a built-in to find elements using their ID. As I said, that's why we gave an ID to the list, this one here, so that here we can find it easily. Then we are going to update this list by saying list.inner HTML. That's basically all HTML code inside this element, and it's going to be plus equals, so to add to it, and we will add the options CTR. So the counter element from the options array. So basically now we have to call this update function every 2 seconds and say the number of the element what we want to add to the list. And we do that with a for loop equals 0 until e less than options dot length. This way you can add more options to the list later on and it would still work. And I++ to keep going forward. So that's our for loop. And one really important attribute of JavaScript, it's that it's non-blocking. So functions are called, things are executed, but JavaScript is never idle. So it's not going to stop. It will call a function, but then immediately continue with the next line. This means that, for instance, we cannot do sleep. So we cannot just tell the code to wait. What we can do is set up timers where we tell the timer which function to call after how much time. So basically we set up a timer, tell it to call this function after 2 seconds. It looks like this. Set timeout. And this is the function name, update. and we say 2000, and then 2000 milliseconds times I plus 1. So if you look at the set timeout, the first parameter is, as I said, the function which should be called after this much time, which is in milliseconds. So I added this, oh, it's actually wrong, I plus 1, so that a timeout is set up for each option after each other, but the timeout is always 2000 milliseconds more. That's why we have the counter here. So the first option will be called with 2000 milliseconds, the second will be with 4000, etc. And the last parameter is the parameter which should be given to this function when it's called. In our case, that's just a counter, so that we know in the update function which option to add to the list. And that's basically it. Let's see how it works. We need to start Apache if it's not running. And then we can try it out in the browser. whoisyourdaddy.php. And you see it's already running, and there are all the options. We can try it again. Join the dark side and die horrible death. So it works. JavaScript will be really important for us in the future. We will exploit it in various attacks. So you will definitely need a basic understanding of how it works, but we will talk about it some more during these attacks. So don't worry if you don't understand everything just now. But let's recap what we did. So we updated our whoisyourdaddy.php site. That list of options are coming with 2 seconds delay. For that, we added this script tag, which is used to embed the JavaScript. We defined an array of options. We created a function to update the list. This line finds the list on the page, and this updates the HTML code of the list. And then we created a for loop to go through all the options and created a timer for each option, always with 2 seconds more delay, and the counter to know which option to add to the list. So another important thing to note here is that all the HTML code is static during the whole time. Then we have this little PHP that's going to be executed on the server side. And then we have the script tag with JavaScript, and that's going to be executed in the browser. So basically now we have programming and dynamic elements in both the browser and on the server side. For now, this was a simple example. I recommend you to play a little bit more with JavaScript. If you can go to jsfiddle.net, it's a really good site to experiment with JavaScript code because it's really convenient to test JavaScript code there. And of course, this solution, what I did here for the problem, is not necessarily the best. So if you happen to have a better solution, then it would be really great if you would add it in the comments so that the others will see as well, and I might also learn something new. So this was all for this lecture. I will see you in the next one. Bye.